And we're back with another video, and today I'm going to answer your questions. I did not want to do this video, but I feel like I owe it to you to do this video because so many other people have done this video, and I don't know that I agree 100% on the things that they're saying or the assumptions that they're making. So I want to give you my take, and my take could be completely wrong as well. And it's on the Trump speech where he said that day one he will rule out or completely roll back the EV mandates, end the EV mandates.
And I will end the electric vehicle mandate on day one.
And while obviously, as a car guy sitting in a Hemi V8 and owning, you know, a couple thousand horsepower worth of cars in my garage, of course that would sound outstanding to me. I've been probably one of the biggest screaming, you know, humans on YouTube about this stupid EV mandates and how much I hate them and how I see these companies going down the tubes and having problems, and Fisker going bankrupt, and Rivian spending hundreds of millions of dollars while paying their CEO tens of millions of dollars, and Lucid losing tons and tons of money and paying their CEO tons of money. And look, you know, yes, of course I would land on that side. But before I get into what I think about the EV mandate speech that Trump gave and where he said he would end them immediately, I do just want to say that I just don't have the energy to battle with you about politics in the comments. If you believe in one thing, God bless you. I don't care. And honestly, it's your thing. I believe in my thing. You know, when I was in the military, I don't remember ever thinking, well, if they send me to war, and I know some of you said, well, you were in the Air Force, the Chair Force. I was in airports. If you go overseas, if you go to war, the biggest target, the number one target the enemy wants to take out is the airport. So make no mistake, our airmen are in harm's way as well. No question, not as much as our proud Marines and frontline Army and infantry and all those, but let's just be real. You know, whether you're on a ship in the Navy or in a submarine or you're flying on AWACS, you're a target and you're serving your country. And I don't think anyone in the military, certainly not me, ever thought, you know, boy, I don't want to protect the Democrats, or I don't want to protect the Republicans. Like, it was just Americans. It was like my country. That was every conversation I had in the military. Every oath I took was to America, which was all of you. So if you get triggered in this video because your guy is who you believe in and you think I'm going for the other guy, and you're gonna call me names, which happened a few videos ago. I was called a Trumpster, a Trumper, Dumpy, Dopey. God, there was just so many. Like, how old are some of my viewers? Like, give me a break. But if you met me on the street, you likely wouldn't say that because you would have some decorum. You might even have a conversation with me. And if you did say that, you'd be considered to be a lunatic. So why scream and yell at people? Then I had some of you fighting with each other, which that was kind of entertaining. You know, one person says, yeah, I believe in this guy because this, and somebody else comes in, it's like, yeah, but he's destroying our country and he's gonna make us into, just what are they saying, a communist state or fascist and all this. Oh God, folks, let it go. Here's the deal. Let me just say what I always say to everybody is, both parties want us hating each other. They do. They benefit if we hate each other. If we believe in them so much, then it doesn't matter who they put up to run. Remember, just like how's the saying go? Vote blue no matter who. So it doesn't matter who they put up. You're going to vote for them. So they want that. Then they don't have to worry about who they put up. They can put up anybody. They can put up a robot. Same thing happens on the right. They can put up anybody. And, you know, the right's going to vote for their guy. Very few people run down the middle. And I can tell you it's gotten really thin to where it doesn't matter who they put up. It means not who is running anymore. It's just left or right. And it's gotten to the place where we're going to yell and scream and call each other names and hate each other, cancel people for believing in one thing or the other thing. It's like, just stop. I love you, man. I'm your bro. If I saw you broke down on the side of the road and you're driving a Challenger, I'm looking for a way to stop and help you. And I'm not checking with you first on who you're voting for before I help you. If you're choking in the middle of a restaurant, I'm not asking you what party you belong to before I help you. I don't care, because none of it matters. And I'll tell you, I'm going to just end this part with this. There are two Democrats that I love more than anything in the world. One of them I'm never going to get to see again, ever again. And I just put him in the ground a few weeks ago. And it's just weighing on me. And it was my dad. My mom and dad have been hardcore Democrats their whole life. Well, I believe most of their life. And they raised me on that side. And then I went out into the world and found my own way and decided that I was going to go a different direction. And guess what? My mother still loves me as much as she always did. My father certainly did until his last dying day, when I was able to give him a hug and a kiss on the forehead and tell him he was the best father I could ever dreamt of. I didn't care that he was a Democrat. I didn't care what they believed in. They were my parents, and they did a good job. So here, I think they did a good job. So bottom line, folks, is before you go insane in the comments, this is just talking about what he said and what I believe is going to ultimately happen. I'm not trying to convince you to vote my direction or not. Hell, vote however you want. And just know, I would still be your friend at a car meet. I would still high five you if you love these cars. I'd still give you a hug, and I'd still save your life if you were in danger and needed somebody to help, because I know that I would probably be the only one carrying something to be able to save your life with. So bottom line is, let's not fight. Can we do that? Can we do that? No negativity. Now let's talk about, and I'll try to not go too hard in any direction in this video as well. So thanks for dealing with me on this little diatribe. So now let's talk about what Trump said. He said he would end the EV mandate. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's going to happen. And one commenter in, I think it was Knockout 360's video said, I don't believe anything that Trump says. I don't believe anything that he says. And I had to write him back. And I had to write him back in a respectful way. And I said, listen, you don't have to believe him. You don't have to believe Biden. You don't have to believe either of them. Matter of fact, they're all friggin' liars. How do you know when politicians are lying? When their lips are moving. Remember that old saying? This is absolutely something that that's not even a new joke. It's been that way since politicians became politicians, since long before I was born. They lie. They lie because there are more people out there that will believe anything they say. It's called political capital. Once you elevate to a certain place, it happens at companies as well. Once you elevate to a certain place of authority and responsibility and respect, then you could say things, and there is a large swath of people out there that are going to go, what he said is true. What he said is true. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. They'll just believe it, and then they'll start regurgitating it out there. That's why I catch so many people having fights in the comments and just out in the world regurgitating the lies that they heard both parties saying. We've gotten to a place now in the debate where it wasn't about whether either of them lied. Now it was just which one lied least.
What stood out was the staggering number of false claims from former President Trump. On first count, Aaron, I counted at least 30 false claims. Now, President Biden also made false claims, at least 9 false or misleading statements.
And that was how people were saying that they picked their guy because he lied less than the other guy, but he still lied. If it's 2 lies and the other guy lied 3 times, how many of you, by a show of hands in the comment section, would agree they're both freaking liars? They're both liars. So when he said he doesn't believe anything that Trump says, what I simply wrote him back is, listen, let's go ahead and look at some truths. If the truths that we can focus on, forget about the words, hyperbole, let's focus on just the truths, which is, yes, the left has never minced words about the climate change support that they're going to give. They've never minced words on their focus on EVs. They've never minced words on the whole climate change thing. That is their thing when it comes to whether it's the EPA or CARB here in California. It's a left thing. We know that. And they have delivered with some pretty intense requirements to be able to build cars nowadays, and some pretty crazy, along with and in conjunction with the EPA and NHTSA, to be able to drive some pretty ridiculous deadlines for manufacturers to achieve to meet these average miles per gallon under the CAFE standards numbers. So we know that that's the left. We know that. So let's just say, I think we can filter all the lies and say the left has absolutely delivered on their promise to restrict carbon emissions and to try to save the planet. That's their thing. Totally cool. Then you can go to the right and say they've been the opposite. They've been the ones screaming that maybe if you go as far right as you can, it's not true. There is no climate change, doesn't exist. This stuff is it's a great big lie. It's the big green lie, or whatever it is, the big green scam. They've been saying that. So I think anyone with common sense, and let's all be that person, is we put our brains together and we say, let's kind of meet in the halfway. Let's go down the middle and say, maybe our planet's not going to be dead in 30 years, wherever the hell. But maybe if we keep going down this road, well, maybe we should err on the side of caution. Maybe we shouldn't just incinerate it on purpose. Maybe we should get better at these carbon emissions. Okay, but let's not go crazy. And maybe on the far right, who says, oh, it doesn't exist, maybe erring on the side of caution, maybe it exists a little bit. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be right in the end. What I do know is I won't be here to find out. But my beautiful little girl, my daughter, will be here, and her kids will be here. So I'm willing to say, look, I'm willing to come into the middle and say, what if they're both kind of right? What if they're, and I think we can agree that both political parties are really good at going to the furthest extreme of everything. I had a therapist, one of my 27 therapists I've been in my lifetime.
So do you feel depressed, Ari?
Depressed? No. Irritated? Yes.
Lifetime tell me that I'm catastrophizing. I looked it up, turns out it's not even a word, but that's what the left and the right does, catastrophize. Well, if we don't do this, we're all going to be, sucking on ice cubes and drowning with the shoreline moving 3 states in because of global warming, and we're all going to die and be wearing face masks the rest of our life. And then you go to the right saying it's not true at all, we should be straight piping every single car. Yet then you get to the logical people that go, hey, look, we probably can't get to a 2030 mandate or 2035 mandate, 2032 mandate. We probably can't get there. We probably can't get to no ICE engines being sold in California by 2030. We probably can't get there. That's just logical. And no matter how much they say it, it doesn't make it to be true.
Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
And then if you go to the far right and say, well, if we don't do anything, then we'll just be fine. What if we said, hey man, why don't we go ahead and come up with something that works for everybody? And how's this working towards some better behaviors? And let's not mine the living daylights out of the Congo in South America with child slavery and using giant diesel gas engines to dig these giant holes and use 60% of our fossil fuels to generate the electricity. Let's just go ahead and find something that's a little bit more true. But Brad, you've got Trump who's pandering and asking for money from the oil companies. Yes, but you've also got Porsche working together with Exxon to come up with e-fuels. So, I mean, there's good work taking place outside of this EV scam, which I believe the EV mandate is a scam, that there's also massive investments from both sides. Go look at who's invested in the oil companies. It's both parties. I started to look for a story once to see how I can prove that one side or the other side was leaning too much towards oil companies. They all are, because they know that no matter what, those things are going to be around. They're not going anywhere. The fossil fuels will be here. The oil companies will be here. They're not going anywhere. And they're hedging their bets saying, well, even the EVs, we're going to have to use fossil fuels to charge those suckers. So no matter what, we're going to be fine. We can't deliver enough electricity to be able to charge all these cars. sitting at about 6.8% adoption in America, and they're saying maybe we get to 10% at some point in the next year or so. That still leaves 90% of the cars being sold are ICE cars, are gas cars. So now what does that mean for Trump's elimination of the mandates? Well, this is what New York Times says. The New York Times definitely skewed left, but I'm willing to go there. I'm willing to read their side and listen to what they have to say. And what's funny is when I read, which is much fewer, the right's side, it's pretty much similar without as much fear about our planet becoming a fireball. So let's go ahead and read this. So the New York Times key points. They believe that we've reached a place of mainstream versus marginal levels of EVs, to the extent that there's so much momentum with EVs now that even the government not helping, not pushing them, that the momentum will carry them through and we will still have them. I agree. I believe that Stellantis, Ford, GM, all these EV companies, I mean, hell, the gates open and the bulls running free. They're going to keep making them. But guess what? I'm okay with that, because the next point I want to make is I never once said I don't think we should have EVs. I'm good with EVs being an option. I'm good with them maybe achieving a place of 10 to 15% adoption as an option for people that they work for. But they don't work for the low income and middle income people, and people who live in high rises, people who live in apartments, people who can't afford to put chargers in their houses that are stuck with running a 120 volt wire to their car. It takes 5 days to charge it. There are people who I think I said apartments already. There are people who travel like myself a lot, that these things wouldn't generally work for those people, nor can those people who, my family was one of them. My dad was a plumber. Had there been electric cars as an option back then, we couldn't have afforded them. We couldn't have afforded them based on the prices, if all things being equal, being so much more than just going and buying a used Ford Courier pickup truck with a 4-cylinder in it, and my dad being able to fill up with gas and go to work every single day, not knowing how long he'd have to be there and whether he would be stuck on a job site till super late and then have to get up and do it all over again the next day. Or a family of 2 or 3 kids where both husband and wife are working and they have one car they got to split between the two of them. You better believe if they could buy one EV for, let's say, the cheapest one in the world, a Chevy Bolt or something, for $30,000, why in the hell wouldn't they buy 2 $15,000 cars that they don't have to worry about charging? Because if they got to split one electric car, they're never going to have enough electricity in those cars or battery reserve in those cars for them to be able to fulfill their lives. Husband comes home, wife takes the car, picks up the kids, takes them to soccer. I mean, it just wouldn't work. So, and without a charger in their house, that's a problem. But so many comments I get in the comment section are these smug, and I say rich people, and people call me that, but I'm not. But I'm going to call them rich people who are in there going, I charge at my house. It's the best thing I've ever done. Well, good for you. My dad was a plumber. We couldn't have done it. I'm sorry. My dad had a Ford Courier, and when they got a little bit of money, my mom got a Volkswagen van, and that thing was rough, and it was running sometimes, and eventually we got some money. We got a Chrysler Cordoba, and I rolled my sister's head up in the window, and I remember that. Never forget that day. Anyways, bottom line is we didn't have the money to be buying this expensive new technology out there, and I tell you right now, neither do people in this country, a large amount of people in this country. EVs are for rich people, period, and people who forget that, which is funny because you think the left, they're out for, they say, the working man, the working family, the lower income people, yet they're pushing EVs that are way too expensive for these people and way too impractical. So we can't believe any of them. They're all friggin' liars. Right now, if you are just getting out of college, starting your family, and you're starting a company, or let's say you just got out of tech school, trade school, and you're going to be a mechanic or something, and you met the woman of your dreams, and you got your first baby on the way, and you combined income is maybe $60,000. You're not going to have a charger in your house. You're not going to be able to buy an EV, even the cheapest EVs. But Brad, you buy a used EV. No, even Tesla only warranties their batteries for 8 years. Otherwise, you got 50,000 miles, and then after that, you still got 8 years with about 100,000 or 110, 120,000, it varies, but warranty on the battery. And once that battery's toast, that car is toast, because that battery is going to cost way more than that car is worth. Yet my 2008 Crown Victoria with 111,000 miles on it that I drove around all morning with the ice cold air conditioning in it, and the 4.6 liter V8, went and got it washed and cleaned it up and made it nice. That thing's 16 years old, and what the guy told me when I bought it from him, he says, hey, by the way, when you hit 500,000 miles and the engine finally gives out, just pop in here, I'll throw a new engine in, or a rebuilt engine in, for like $3 grand, $3,500. That even covers a couple cases of beer while I'm working on it. I'm like, right on, brother, sounds good. That car will always be worth better than that, at the very least worth that. So even if it's not worth that much, it still is very usable for somebody, and it's a great car. So that won't happen with any EV. As a matter of fact, as technology progresses, it won't happen. So now what happens with this EV mandate that Trump makes go away? Oh, I put in here, what isn't measured also when you talk about the less than 7% adoption is how many of those people also own and depend on ICE vehicles. This is the lying on both parties. Nobody's going to tell us, well, how many of them also own an ICE vehicle? Well, I would say vast majority of them. Very few people are probably 100% EV. And try to think about it. My family, with just 3 drivers in it, if we had to charge 3 cars, it would be World War III in my house on a regular basis to try to figure out how to get 3 cars to charge at the same time or rotate around. It'd be a friggin' nightmare. So imagine just trying to fight with your wife about whose car's gonna charge, and what if they're both dying at the same time and you guys gotta, fight over the charger. It's just stupid. And they also said if Trump is elected, we will not hit the Biden targets, which is, I think, a good thing, because it will force a slow roll. While the manufacturers are probably still going to keep building EVs as an option, because there are people out there that want them and they should be able to have them. I would never tell them they can't have what they enjoy driving, just as I would rather them never tell me what I can drive. Now, with that said, just work on making these things better. That's all. Make them better over time. And here is how Trump could do it. So this is the question a lot of people have. So one, he could roll back the regulation that limits tailpipe pollution and changing the rules that determine the number of vehicles eligible for tax credits. It's the first thing you can do. The second thing you could do, if Republicans gain control of Congress, a Trump administration could also work to rescind parts of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, which provided at least $370 billion in tax credits for clean energy, for battery manufacturing, and for EV sales and manufacturing. Okay, so that would force slowing, but it could also create some good things, which I'll talk about in a second. But first, I want to address the Hemi. A lot of people are like, Hemi's coming back. Well, here's how I believe the only way the Hemi comes back. If all that happens, the only way the Hemi comes back would be if sales of Dodge EVs were so bad that they had to reverse course just to survive, to save the company, or sell CDJR off to someone who would bring them back. Because they're not going to sit here and keep building something that nobody's going to buy. And right now, the challenge is that they're just not selling. Even I just watched TK's video, and he's talking about GM saying, hey, man, we got to throttle back on this too. People aren't buying these things. The hype is over. The inconvenience is overwhelming. The range anxiety is irritating. Most of these cars are coming out with 200 to 250 in range if you want to get something that's somewhat affordable. And that's, for some people, works perfectly. For a lot of people, it just doesn't, because those are at peak performance, at perfect conditions estimates. Next, I will tell you why Dodge will fail and why so many of these other automakers will fail. Because Tesla has such a huge head start. They have better reliability, better range, better charging network. This is where they win. And the cars will be less money, because Tesla will keep just burying them when it comes to price and keep dropping his prices if he needs to. He can afford to do it. He's coming from a place of extreme financial strength and not having to answer to as many people for what he does. He just makes the decision, and then you see prices drop. And they did that. And that's why, if you look at the numbers for what EVs sell the most, Well, even though now we have almost every single automaker out there delivering EVs to market, the market saturation still is owned by Tesla. Check this out. Tesla still represents over 50% of all EVs sold in the US with their Model 3, Y, and X. With the next closest brand being Ford with the Mach-E and Lightning and whatever the hell else with 8.2. Everyone else is like 5, 4%, and then it drops down to 0.30, 1.2. Tesla is mopping the floor with everybody. That's like me picking a fight with the biggest, burliest, triple, black belt kung fu guy in the world that can squash me with his fingers and thinking I'm gonna win. Like, I wouldn't pick that fight with him. These automakers picking a fight with Tesla without having the charging networks straightened out, and if Tesla does make the charging networks available, which they've been working, I think, with Ford and others, and even Stellantis is working on it, it would then cripple Tesla's charging network, because now you'd have all these Fords and then Dodges and Jeeps all trying to fight over those chargers. And right now, go to a charging station that's only, let's say, 5 or 6 charging stations, and there's near literal fist fights taking place. I'm not kidding. I have a video that the guy begged me not to share, but I watched him yelling and screaming and fighting and acting like a lunatic in front of one of my offices trying to get into a charging station. And when he saw me filming, he started yelling at me. Then him and I had a few words, and then he came over and begged me not to put him online because it would have been so viral. But he was a lunatic over waiting for somebody to get in and charge one of these charging stations. I've been waiting forever, and I watch it all day long. It's insane. So what do I think's going to happen if Trump wins? I think he'll follow through with what he's saying. I think out of all the lies you guys could say that he says, this one, he did it last time, and he rolled back all these crazy mandates. He rolled them back last time and definitely pulled back on the CAFE standards last time. So I will tell you, I believe he will do it. I will give him that. He's gonna do it. And at that point, I believe what it's gonna do is it's gonna dramatically slow the automakers' need to continue to spend as much and push as hard, and EVs will settle into becoming an option, and they won't have the pressure hanging over their head to get these things jammed down our throats in such a short period of time. So at least they will be the option that everybody deserves to have. But I also believe at that point what will happen is the cheap gas cars will get to come back. I shared with you another video that the reason why these manufacturers could not build as many of these cheap mini trucks, for example, or cheap cars, fuel-efficient 4-cylinder cars, is there wasn't enough profit in them, and there wasn't enough average miles per gallon in them based on the size and weight of the cars that it could make sense to sell them. So they built all these super expensive cars and bigger cars with smaller engines, which is what we've been seeing happening. Well, if we can get back to building cheap, good starter cars for people to buy to go to work, for the lower and middle income folks, the people making their way up the financial food chain to be able to get their starter cars, something with the warranty that's new that will last a long time, and then they could buy those things used, buy a 10-year-old car that will still go another 50 or 100,000 miles. Having those things around make our world a better place. And we will have those, and they will get great gas mileage and hybrids and all that fun stuff. But then the next thing that's going to happen is, I believe, go read about Porsche's e-fuels without so much pressure on just going EV as fast as possible. What I believe is going to happen is you're going to start seeing the new synthetic fuels coming out and better technology coming out as additional options, because it can't be gas or electric. It can't even be just hybrid. It needs to be a blend. You've got electric cars, you've got hybrid cars, you've got gas cars, you got more efficient gas cars because they're getting better at building the cars to be more efficient. And then you'll have synthetic fuels, you'll have hydrogen, and with all these different types where people can choose which cars they want to drive, and they can adopt as the infrastructure can support those cars, we can get where we need to get. And for those that believe our planet's heading into becoming a fireball, you'll be okay. It'll work out. But electric is not the answer. And I think at the very least, whether Trump understands what he's doing or not, I'm not even here to argue about that. I believe he at least knows that there's no way forcing electric cars down our throats will lead to anything other than mass blackouts and of absolute complete sucking up of the electrical grid that we've got out there, and all the electricity we're still producing using fossil fuels without bringing heavy nuclear creation of energy back. The renewables represent less than about 20% of the electricity creation, and that could never keep up with a rapid adoption of electric vehicles. So we're still going to have that problem, which means we need to have more than one option, and that would be a reasonable thing, and I think all of us would be cool with it. Let me have my V8 car, let me have my Lamborghini, that I do less damage to the universe than you do with your Prius hybrid, because you drive your Prius hybrid every single day up and down the freeway, and I drive the Lamborghini a couple hundred miles on the weekend. That's it. It's a fun car. Let us have our fun cars, and then offset everything with a whole bunch of great options that save the planet. Then everyone wins. So with that, everybody, sorry for this longer video. This is just what I think is going to happen, and I think that things will settle down to reality. And then 4 years from now, we'll have to get into the fight all over again to see who wins, because if the left wins and it's extreme at that point, then they're going to go back to the crazy mandates, but it'll be still kicked down the road a little bit because of the 4 years of them not having to overdo it. But if you read what a lot of the manufacturers are saying is, look, we can't turn our ship fast enough to go hard right, hard left. We have to stay on course. But what they can do is they can not eliminate things as fast, and they can keep producing cars that can make money for them, that have ICE engines, without having to worry about the government taxing the daylights out of them or fining the daylights out of them. So with that, everybody, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.